December 22nd, 2008. A woman called Meryem went missing from her home in Turkey. 1 year later, her daughter Melike, who was then only 6 years old, also went missing. Both were never seen or heard of ever again. What happened to them remained a mystery until 10 years later. In 2018, Meryem's family took part in a popular Turkish TV show, Müge Anlı. The format of the show is to investigate more unusual, unsolved crimes in Turkey, and by bringing together all those involved, it tries to shed light on what really happened and who was or were responsible. In this particular case, the show was trying to establish the whereabouts of Meryem and her young daughter, if indeed they were still both alive or not. Now, I have to point out that Meryem's family believed that her husband's family killed her, and their reason for thinking that was due to the number of events which had happened before Meryem's disappearance. Previously, Meryem had come back to her family with her 2 children, claiming that her husband had been forcing her to have sex for money with men. A little bit later, Meryem's husband turned up at the house and demanded that Meryem be given back to him. A heated argument broke out, and in a fit of rage, Meryem's father picked up a weapon and shot the man dead. For killing her husband, Meryem's father was imprisoned and she moved back into the family home. It was a large household. There was Meryem and her 2 children, her mom plus her 4 siblings, including one sister's husband Tuncer and their 2 children. At this point, for those of you who may not know much about Islamic traditions, I have to give you some background information for you to understand what happened next. Some people believe that there are certain individuals who have the power to place a curse on you, your house, your family. They believe that if certain rituals are followed, a curse written in Arabic and placed within your house will bring about great troubles and misfortune to all those who dwell within. Tuncer, the husband of one of Meryem's sisters, convinced Meryem's family that her dead husband's family had placed a curse on them as an act of revenge. He said that the curses written in Arabic had been secretly placed throughout the walls of the house, and that only he, Tuncer, could exorcise the house of evil. Trusting in what Tuncer said, Meryem's family started to scrap the walls of their house with pure alcohol in an attempt to cleanse their house of what they perceived to be evil spirits. When this failed to disperse the curse, the family started smashing the walls down, bit by bit. At the same time as destroying their home, Meryem's family said that they were plagued by visions of menacing women dressed in black burqas who followed them wherever they went. Given such a desperate situation, Tuncer was able to persuade the family to sell the house and buy a car with the proceeds. For the next 3 months, the entire family had only a car to call home, living rough and becoming increasingly under the control of Tuncer, a man they trusted, a man they revered. It was at this time when Meryem disappeared. Her family maintained that her dead husband's family kidnapped her. However, there is evidence, eyewitness corroboration, that it was Tuncer himself who took Meryem and subjected her to days of physical and mental torture. Reportedly, Meryem was tied to a tree, repeatedly beaten to within an inch of her life, raped numerous times, denied food and very little water. It seems that the family were aware of what was happening. Indeed, we know from the program that all family members actually witnessed the savage and barbaric acts Tuncer committed against Meryem. For reasons known only to himself, Tuncer chose to commit the ultimate act of violence towards Meryem. He took her life. We cannot begin to imagine the pain, the suffering, and utter despair Meryem was forced to endure in those final days of her young life, all the time knowing that her family was close by, that they could have put an end to these violent acts. Yet they stood by and did nothing. What they did do was bury their own daughter, but kept silent about the circumstances as to how she died. Following her death, Meryem's family tried to run away from her dead husband's family. Tuncer had convinced them that her husband's family would seek revenge and slaughter each and every one of them. This was simply untrue, but was a mechanism for Tuncer to gain full control over Meryem's family, which he used to maximum effect. They fled from place to place, exchanging life in a car for life in different houses in different towns and cities throughout Turkey. At this point, through fear and intimidation, Tuncer had absolute power over the family and subjected all of them to unimaginable acts of perversion. Without their knowing, every family member was heavily drugged, including Meryem's young children and elderly parents. Every family member was raped and tortured to satisfy the sexual and sadistic desires of this monster. They were brutally abused in every way. Sometimes, after injecting them with a heavy narcotic, he would break the needle so that it remained in the skin of his victim. They were left locked in rooms, given only enough to eat and drink for survival. Hunger was a daily reality. Meryem's young son Recep tried many times to escape from the living hell they were enduring at that time. He always promised his younger sister Melike that he would come back to save her, but Recep never made it. Exhausted from the ordeal and torture he had suffered, he was never able to go far. Tuncer always found him and incarcerated him once again. But one time, Recep did make it. Dazed and confused, eventually Recep ended up in a police station. How this happened isn't clear, but he came under the care of the government. This is what he says about the experience.
Şöyle oldu, bunlar kendi çocuklarına dahil bize yemek vermiyorlardı, dövüyorlardı ve odaya kapatmışlardı. Başakşehir'de oturuyorlardı. Ben de ilk 2 sefer kaçtım. 3'te kaçtım. Daha izleri falan da vardı yani.
En iyisini mi söyleyeceğim?
Zaten. Ben direkt polise gitmedim bu arada. Yolda bayılmıştım açlıktan.
Açlıktan.
Evet ya o zaman 8 yaşındaydım ben.
Melike'yi hatırlıyor musun, kardeşini?
Ya çok az hatırlıyorum, çok yani.
Peki
Bayağı.
Melike de senin durumunda mıydı? Aç mı bırakılıyordu ona?
Evet, ben hatta onu geri kaçırmaya çalışmıştım falan, gücüm yetmedi, dedim polise söylerim, polis getirir.
Sen kız kardeşini de mi evden kaçırmaya çalıştın?
Evet.
Meanwhile, Tuncer told Meryem's family that her daughter Melike was evil, that she was possessed by the devil and the only way to exorcise her was to give her pure alcohol mixed with vinegar. Not only did Melike have to drink this mixture, but everyone in the family had to do so also. Everybody complied with Tuncer's order to drink it, as they were too afraid to disobey a man they considered holy. After drinking such a lethal concoction, all family members became severely ill, but none more so than 6-year-old Melike. The child's stomach became abnormally swollen, and Tuncer declared that was a sign of the evil within her. He then proceeded to kick her stomach violently in order to expel the evil in her. Under such a brutal attack, the young Melike died painfully and slowly. Her own grandmother later confessed to the police that she washed the little girl's body before they buried her in the middle of some wasteland. Melike's so-called disappearance happened in 2009, just 1 year after the murder of her mother. In 2011, Meryem's father, who had been jailed for killing her husband, was released. His first act, after being told by his wife about the horrific events which had taken place while he was in prison, was to go to the police. Accompanied by his wife, he made a statement to the police that he hadn't killed his son-in-law and that he only confessed the crime to protect the real killer, his son, Meryem's brother. He maintained that although his son had committed the murder, Tuncer was responsible for it as he, Tuncer, had told the son to do it. Although she initially supported and corroborated her husband's statement to the police, Meryem's mother later withdrew her own statement and said this was not true. She claimed she had said this under duress, that she had only said it because Meryem's dead husband's family had threatened her to kill her and her family. It is not clear when she retracted her original statement, but it is assumed that she was coerced into doing so by Tuncer in order for him to escape capture. Several years passed. The bodies of Meryem and Melike were never found. What had happened to them was an unsolved mystery until Meryem's family, along with Tuncer himself, decided to take part in a TV program. For reasons known only to themselves, the family appeared on a popular live morning TV show to talk about their missing loved ones. What happened next was utterly extraordinary. The show was broadcast over several days. Meryem's mother and brothers can be seen talking about their lost daughter and granddaughter, as if they are totally unknowing of their true fate. They are pleading for information of their whereabouts and begging them to return home. Tuncer can be seen blaming Meryem's husband's family for everything, for her and Melike's disappearance, and even saying that it was Meryem herself who was violent to him and other people. Unbelievably, despite knowing the awful truth, Meryem's parents nod in agreement with every lie he comes out with. But then, things go terribly wrong for this family. An outside broadcaster breaks into the live transmission of the show to announce the mother and some other family members are being arrested in the flat they live in. The studio audience breaks into rapturous applause. Here is the actual footage.
Şu anda biliyorsunuz biz yayın yapıyorduk ve buraya Kocaeli Asayiş Şube Müdürlüğü'nden ekipler geldiler. Şu anda
Gel bakalım.
hemen biz de dışarıya çıkmak durumunda kaldık. Biliyorsunuz hemen şöyle emniyet ekipleri şu anda evin içerisine giriyorlar. Bir gözaltı kararı çıkarıldı Palo ailesi için.
Tuncer and his wife in the TV studio look on in shocked surprise, but for them, worse is to come.
Kocaeli Emniyet Müdürlüğü'ne bağlı Asayiş Şube Müdürlüğü Cinayet Büro ekipleri şu an stüdyomuzdalar. Kocaeli'nden geldiler. Başsavcımızın talimatıyla stüdyomuza geldiler. Tuncer Ustael ve eşi Emine Ustael'i kasten adam öldürme suçlamasıyla gözaltına alıyorlar. Evet, şu anda Meryem ve küçük yavrusu Melike Tanlan'ı öldürme
Neyse
suçundan.
gerçekleri söylüyorum. Yani hak var, adalet var ya.
Tutuklanıyorsunuz. Gözaltına alın.
Evet tamam, biz adam falan öldürmedik. Yemin ederim ki biz öyle bir şey yapmadık.
Yanıma
At their trial, Tuncer was sentenced to life imprisonment. Maryam's mother, two sisters, and one brother each received sentences of 12 years and 6 months. Her father was never charged with any crime. Justice was finally served thanks to a TV program, but the real question remains: how is it possible for one man to exert such an influence over others to the extent that they will lie, deceive, and even become complicit in the murder of their own family members? That is the real mystery. See you next time.